It's Monday, November 18th, 2019. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we'll cover. Ford has unveiled the first in a new line of Mustang-branded vehicles, this one being the all-electric Mustang Mach-E SUV. We've got the details on what to expect on the new EV, and with all the streaming TV services being announced, you may have forgotten that streaming video gaming launches tomorrow with Google Stadia. We'll let you in on some of the last-minute announcements that they have put out. And we're so used to having instant weather reports now, it's easy to forget how hard that is to do accurately. Cameron Clayton of Watson Media and Weather will join to discuss how they curate their data. And with the latest trends of retro and cutting-edge technology, the Motorola Razr has debuted. Our own Corey Gaskin was able to get some hands-on time with it. Will walk us through the latest foldable device, some of the key features, and what to expect when it does come out. All that and more on Digital Trends Live. All the technology that you can handle. That's what's coming up today. This is Digital Trends Live. This is our daily show here from Digital Trends, where we bring you the trending tech topics of the day, news, interviews, headlines, discussions, and so much more. I'm so excited. I just can't wait to start talking about it, but I do want to remind everybody, we're broadcasting live in the Samsung QLED 4K studio, and we're live on a number of different platforms right now. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So wherever you're finding us, you can join in the conversation, and that is what we encourage you to do. But to start off right now, I'm Greg Nibbler, joined by Drew Prindle. Hello, Drew.
What up, Greg?
I'm so excited to talk about tech. I can hardly, keep myself under control here.
I can see it.
It's palpable in the room. But there's a lot that's going on. And to start off this Monday, as usual, we got a lot of stuff to bring you up to date on and what's happening in the world of technology. But to start off, let's talk about this. Certainly something that's trending across a number of different sites on the internet and really all over the place. It has to do with Ford unveiling their latest vehicle, all-electric Mustang branded Mach-E. And so there's a couple of key things with this. This is something we knew they were going to be talking about, and they unveiled it actually yesterday, finally showcasing what it's going to look like. So it is an SUV. It is fully electric, but it is branded as a Mustang. And there's a couple of, some key things with that. It's not what you would think of as a standard Mustang when you take a look at that.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like your typical Mustang body style, but
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what people are buying these days, is these little crossover-looking SUVs.
Yep, a crossover SUV. So it's all electric, 4-door. It definitely falls into that crossover segment as far as that's
instead of an engine, it has a cooler.
It has a cooler, powered by a cooler. Yep. So it's taller than a standard Mustang. Obviously looks different. As far as the technical side of things, it said that it has an extended range of 300 miles with rear-wheel drive, 270 miles with all-wheel drive. So you do have the option on there. And then there's a couple of different upgrades you can do depending on what the trims are, and that can change what your general range is. But no matter what it is, it's over 200 miles no matter how you look at it. They said it's got 0 to 60 somewhere in the mid 5-second range, so that's pretty good also for an SUV. And then some of the specifics, the car has some great horsepower, so it's 255 horsepower actually. So it's a good vehicle when it comes to that as far as matching up to what other standards I think you would think of when it comes to an SUV. The key here is, though, to me, is that Mustang brand name. That's a big thing, to go outside of what we all think of as a standard Mustang, at least that same line they've had forever. I mean, the equity that they have with that name alone is huge, and Mustang fans love their Mustangs. Now, this is the part of a suite of vehicles that are going to have the Mustang name attached to them, but aren't the standard Mustang.
Yeah, I mean, the Mustang name is just typical American muscle.
Yeah,
right?
it's
internal
iconic.
Combustion engines. Like, the fact that they're slapping that on an electric vehicle is a little bit weird.
Yeah, and there's been some feedback about that, where some of the real Mustang fans are not happy with it, but that's also not really what they're going for. I don't think they're necessarily they're putting it on there because it's a very recognizable name. They can put the horse on there and then go from there.
I don't think they can call it a Mustang until they jump it over some railroad tracks with Vin Diesel in it.
Right.
That's what it needs to do in order to be called a Mustang.
Yeah, and that's, I think, going to be one of the interesting things when it comes down to is how people respond, and that's what I want to know, what people think about this. I guess taking the Mustang name aside, this is certainly a big thing for Ford because they've made it no secret that they want to push into all electric vehicles a lot. They want to go head to head with Tesla. Talking about the pricing on this, so it's going to start from about $43,000. So it's just a little bit more than Tesla, but really in that same range.
Gotcha.
Perhaps some of the features are a little bit bigger, a little bit better on that end as far as what they think. But yeah, definitely going at Tesla. They've got some premium versions, some GT versions that can go all the way up to, it sounds like about $60,000, depending on what you want to add on to it. But targeting in that vein of where Tesla has been going, and they're not the only company that's doing it, but Ford has made a lot of announcements about their push. They also have the E150 that's going to be coming out maybe this year, maybe or next year, maybe the year after. We don't have an exact date, but this is a big push for them.
Can we just get past the point where we have to shoehorn the letter E into every electric car name? Like, I'm so over that. Like, I liked the trend for a minute when we were going, and we'd give it some like electricity-oriented name, like the Bolt or the Volt or something like that. But you got E, really? Let's just get rid of that.
Well, now they're putting Mustang onto it, so to try to add that in, but also still going with the Mach-E.
I would have gone with E-Stang.
E-Stang.
Did that not, trend well with the focus groups?
Or the ad wizards on that one, yeah. That's what we're looking at with it, and definitely, again, Ford pushing into this, big announcement for them with this Mustang. We'll have more details coming up. We have all the details right now that we know about at digitaltrends.com. The LA Auto Show is going on right now, and we've got Adam Kasakowski down there. I'm sure he'll be getting all the details that you need on this vehicle. But this is just one announcement this week. There's another big one coming up, don't forget, of Tesla announcing their Cybertruck, which I believe is on the 21st.
Now that's a name.
So that's Cybertruck. Yeah, that's pretty solid. So that's going to be announced this week too, and their push back into that side of things when it comes to electric vehicles. So it's a big week for electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let us know what your comments are, what you think about that in the chat, on whatever platform you are watching. Continuing on with our news coverage, let's talk about this. We've talked a lot about television streaming and how many different services are coming out with that right now, but something that may have been overlooked is streaming gaming. And that's Google Stadia is coming out tomorrow. So this was a huge announcement earlier this year. It seems to have lost a little bit of steam for some, but it is definitely a big deal, and it's happening tomorrow. And Google is making some announcements to try to buffer the initial offering. So it's coming out November 19th. And again, you had to be one of the founding members. So they had a founders club that you could join to get it when it first rolled out. And those are sold out. So if you didn't get one of those, you're not going to be able to join quite yet. But they announced that there were going to be 12 games to start with that you could play on the system, and they got a lot of backlash about that's not very many games. So they emergency announced 10 more games. Just yesterday, they're like, well, let's throw on 10 more. And so there's a post that kind of came up about it, just walking through the 22 games that they beefed it up to. Some standards in there, Red Dead Redemption 2. You've got some of the ones that we would know would be in there. They added on NBA 2K. They added on some other sports gaming ones that are going to be coming on there. We've got a full list of digital trends. I'm trying to get that pulled up right now just to let walk through them. But 22 games where they're going to be at, and that's all right, I suppose, for starting off. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about the streaming gaming, and is this something that you would pick up?
So I'm very much into this idea of just like you're paying for a subscription service, so you don't have to buy a console and then renew it every few years when the new one comes out. You can just stick with the same service, and whatever games you want to play, you can play on any device, right?
Yes, essentially.
I love that core idea. But the way that they have executed this, it doesn't look terribly appealing to me. Because apparently, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you pay for the monthly subscription fee.
Yes.
And then you have to pay for the games on top of that. And they're the same price that they would be anywhere else. So basically, over the lifespan of, depending on how long you have this service for, you're going to rack up the same amount of cost over a few years that you would if you would have just bought a console.
Honestly, you probably would eventually.
So really, the only benefit to this is the fact that you can kind of stream it to any device.
You can stream it to any device, 4K. They're saying you can get up to 60 frames per second, and a lot of stuff when it comes to that side of it, but there are different tiers. So there's the basic service. If you have the controller, you can buy a game and play on it. There's the monthly fee, and then there's also, though, another service you can go up to a premium level. And at that level, then you get, I think it's 1 to 2 free games per month that you can play. which is kind of like a PlayStation Plus package.
But I'm
or
sure that's
Xbox.
going to be like, oh, the free tier games. It's just like some
Right.
indie game that's like, oh, it's a pixel adventure. Like it doesn't even use the,
Are they
the
gonna-
4K streaming abilities that you're paying for.
Yeah. Taking a look here in the chat at some of the comments, Keelan said, what kind of crappy launch catalog is 22 games? You could have settled on 20 or worked harder to get to 30, but 22 just sounds duct taped. And it was, just announced it was supposed to be 12, and I think a lot of people had an issue with that, so they threw in the 10 more games. They did say, that they're working with a lot of developers. They've been buying up some studios, trying to get some premium original games. I think that's something they could do if they came out with a, if they lucked into a Red Dead Redemption 2 or something, and that's kind of like that's probably not going to happen. That's a white whale. But if they found like some really amazing game that was original, then maybe that could push some.
Yeah,
more people
perhaps.
onto
I
it.
think that's going to be the thing. They're going to have to buy up some studio that's already working on something awesome because
Yeah.
I don't think they can just like turn around and be like, all right, we should develop some original games right now.
Right.
It's going to be like what, like a year minimum until that thing is out.
Yeah. I mean, until you really start having original games that you would be able to put on there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be some of that, but a really premium A-level game that's probably going to be pretty difficult to rally up. But that's something that we're taking a look at right now. Again, that's with Google Stadia. A lot to get through in the news, but that's going to be coming out tomorrow. We'll be talking a lot about it once it does debut. We've had people already playing it. We can get their opinions on it. So you can stay tuned for more information on Google Stadia at digitaltrends.com. Continuing on with our news coverage, we do have something else. I wanted to bring this up because it's a pretty big deal in the world of tech because this guy's name is out there all the time. And it's John Legere of T-Mobile has made an announcement that he is stepping down from being CEO. Now, this guy, you see him all over the place. He's very flamboyant. He's very out there. He says what's on his mind. He's not always, a PC CEO kind of guy.
Not at all.
He says whatever he thinks. And he's been certainly in the news a lot lately because of his push to merge Sprint and create that third largest telecommunications company in America, behind Verizon and AT&T. And they got all the federal approval for that. There are still some lawsuits out there that are waiting that they have to settle from different states, but he's pretty confident that they would either be able to settle those or win in court. And now he has made the announcement that this April he is going to be stepping down. His COO is going to be taking over. But kind of a big move when it comes to tech.
Yeah, I wonder if this was prompted by the merger. They're just like, dude, we can't have you crazy person at the head of this giant company. Although I guess he was.
He
I
was
don't know,
successful.
man.
I mean, he
He
made
definitely
it happen.
was. I'm a fan, but like,
Yeah.
it just seems like the timing of it was weird.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it's related to the merger in some way.
Yeah, but that's what he came out. He did say that he's not retiring, and he said that he's looking at other companies, but it can't be companies I hate, which eliminates Verizon and AT&T from the list. So that's the kind of guy he is. That's what he actually said in a statement. But that's something you can read more about at Digital Trends. But I think everybody will be following along with whatever he does after he gets.
As long as he doesn't get off Twitter, I'll
I'll
be
think
happy.
so. I
Like,
think it's just the start. Now he's going to be untethered.
yeah, for real.
Like, who knows?
No contracts, no obligations to shareholders.
Yeah.
Now it's really going to heat up.
By the way, John, if you want to join us here on Digital Trends Live, I'll once
Hit us
again
up.
extend that invitation. Please join us. All right, a final thing that we want to talk about here in the news before we go to a break. We've got some great interviews coming up on the show, but this one has to do with TikTok and the possibility that they may be launching a streaming music service of their own to compete with Spotify, Amazon, and different Apple, different services like that. So this is reported that ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, is in talks with Sony, Universal, and Warner to license their music catalogs for the service. They would do it a little bit differently, where you'd have the streaming music, but also you'd have videos that you can add into your TikTok posts. It's kind of an interesting way that they want to go about it and combine social media with streaming music.
Yeah, it seems like they just kind of want to expand the library of songs that you have available when you're making your little TikTok
Yeah.
lip sync videos or whatever, which is probably a good idea.
Right. I mean, there's no company that's had as much attention or rapid growth as TikTok, I think,
Yeah.
when it comes to social media. I mean, right now, they've got, it's estimated more than 1 billion users that they could
Worldwide,
have, worldwide, that they could have tied into this. The company is estimated to be worth about $75 billion. So they could certainly buy their way into streaming music if that's what they wanted, but it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
I think it would be a good move. Like,
Yeah.
as somebody who just
Smart.
started using TikTok, one of
Yeah.
the annoying parts of it is like you're like, I want to make a silly video with this song, and you search for it, and it's just not in their library, and you're like, well, I guess I can't use it.
Yeah, but now
If it was like Spotify and they had like every song under the sun, basically, it would make it much more seamless and much more fun to use.
well, that may be something that we'll be getting, so we'll find out about that. But let us know what you think about that. Certainly an interesting conversation to have. All right, we need to take a break here, but before we talk about who our next guest is going to be, I want to say, Drew, thank you.
It's always a pleasure, man.
As always fun. Up next, we are going to have Joel Flory from Visco. Yes, the co-founder, the CEO. He's going to be joining us. We're going to talk about their platform. We're going to talk about everything that's going on with it, the extreme popularity of it, how it's become so popular, and what they're planning for the future. So much to talk about. And since we're broadcasting live, I want to know what your questions are. If you have questions, drop those in there. I'll relay them. That's part of the fun thing about this show. We're interactive, so definitely do that whatever platform you are on. And we'll be back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. And certainly something that is trending almost all the time now is Visco. And we have the co-founder and CEO joining us right now, Joel Flory. Joel, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I mean, man, your company is everywhere now. And I just want to talk about, just to give everybody kind of a little bit of background. You know, you're the co-founder. When you were founding this company, what was it that you didn't see out there that you thought your company could fill the gap of? And what was, maybe some of the inspiration for founding it?
So, leading up to Visco, my wife and I were professional photographers for a little over 10 years. And my co-founder, Greg, was an art director and designer. And Greg and I were always talking about, what if we built a community, and what if we built kind of a tool set to help people express themselves, where it wasn't about delivering value to others, it was about yourself. And so that was really this initial premise of kind of tools and community to help you on your own creative journey that led to the creation of Visco.
So let's talk about this phenomenal growth. So you create this company, you put it out there, and clearly a lot of other people felt the same way. We're missing something like that, where it's posting for yourself. Let's talk about how you started and then where you've grown to right now.
Yeah, so we launched in 2011, and we launched kind of a plug-in-ish for Photoshop and Lightroom. And from there, in 2012, we launched a paid mobile app. And then it was really June of 2013 when we launched really what is Visco today. So it was the community and the tools, a place where you could share to find inspiration, and not really worry about what others think about you, but to do it for yourself. So from that time, there's been no public likes or comments. There's no follower count. And as we talk to people, our initial insight was to create something where it's not about how you want the world to see you, but how you see the world. And so that was really what led us to create Visco the way that we did. And it's really taken off, I think, especially as we've seen with Gen Z. So that initial idea was around a creative, where they're always being judged by their portfolio, their day rate depended upon the level of engagement they could guarantee. And now what we're seeing is over 75% of our 20 million plus weekly active users are under the age of 25. And so Gen Z has come in and really found this safe space to be who they are.
What do you think it is? Yeah, specifically, I mean, talking about safe space, that's certainly a great one. What do you think it is that's so attractive to that particular user base?
I think for Gen Z in particular, as digital natives, they live their entire life online. And for many of them, their parents probably even registered social handles before they were born. And I think for them, they look at their social platforms not as like a one for size for everything, but really, what do I need for one-to-one messaging? What do I need for one-to-many? What do I need to broadcast? And they have this playbook on how to navigate. And so I think in particular for Gen Z, they're looking for that space where they're not being judged, where they're not comparing themselves to someone else. We recently launched a survey in which over 80% mentioned they have not shared something they've made out of fear of what others think about it. And so for us, they're looking for that safe space to be creative and be expressive, and that's Visco.
That's definitely powerful when it comes to mental health. And, there's so many studies that we could talk about just about the effects of that, about likes and sharing and how that affects you mentally. So certainly if somebody's sharing something just for themselves and not concerned about what those likes are, I mean, that's tremendous. Talking about Visco itself, also, you have your on-platform with over 20 million users, but off-platform, you are huge as well. And I wanted to talk about that, some of the integration into like TikTok in particular. How have you felt about that increasing use on TikTok, the hashtags? What has that done for your business?
Yeah, so Visco from the beginning has not been about creating a walled garden in which the content just lives on Visco. So we want to help you be expressive, share who you are, both on and off of Visco. And so we've seen this across a multitude of platforms. TikTok, definitely, we've seen a recent increase, but recently just launched a new lens with Snapchat in a partnership. And we're continuing to build value both on and off Visco in our partnerships.
What about some of the trends, some of the user bases? And I have to ask this because certainly it's been something that everybody, you know what I'm going to ask.
What are you going to ask? I'm curious. I have no idea.
How do you feel about the trend of Visco Girl?
Yeah. I'm thankful purely from the standpoint that it's giving us a platform to continue to enter a conversation to talk about what we care about so much. And that is the positive impact that creativity has on mental health. And so the Visco Girl trend is not a new one for us. It's something that's been on platforms since probably about 2015. I think what we've seen, though, is that it's taken a life of its own and grown far beyond Visco and far beyond what's on our platform. Because when you go on Visco and you search for Visco Girl, you're going to see a much more diverse perspective and different walks of life, as Visco is over 80% outside the US. And so it's very, there's a lot of source of inspiration. There's a lot of different what it means to be a girl and identity on Visco. But yeah, this recent trend's definitely taken off. It's given us an opportunity to speak and be in front of and those conversations to happen. Because I have so many friends coming up to me being like, oh my gosh, never put two and two together. Just wanted to thank you as I've dove into this. Like as I talk to my kids about it, I'm able to realize that this is a space where they're safe from all the pressure of some of the other platforms and they're able to be who they are.
How's it been for you just on a personal level? You mentioned your friends coming up and saying like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Just seeing this, clearly the success has been building for all these years. So that's not something new, but now even just this, I guess, newfound popularity or some other people discovering Visco that weren't native users before. What's that been like just on a personal level to see that in the media and how you've experienced it?
I love it. So my co-founder and I, we aren't building this just for those that identify as a creative. We believe that ultimately creativity is a global language and that we all have a story to tell. And so for me, I really just love seeing this become more of a household name, people exploring it, expressing who they are, really diving into it. And so for me, it's just been a great thing to see.
That's awesome. Well, Joel, I want to ask too, because you just mentioned that you have the new lens for Snapchat, for Snap that's coming out. What are some other things on the horizon for Visco that we could expect?
So to take a quick step back, in 2017, we launched a membership. And now, to the end of 2018, we reached north of 2 million paid subscribers. And we're on pace. We'll double that in the next couple quarters. So for us, we've been focused. We started a little bit more in video for our members. We'll be continuing to really double down on video and have a lot of exciting new features on the video front. And that's really a big core focus of what we're focusing on in 2020.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live to talk about it. Congratulations on the success. I mean, that's just tremendous for anything to launch and be this huge, and man, it's going to be an exciting, I feel like next year is going to be a really big year for Visco as well.
I'm already looking forward to it. So.
All right, Joel, thanks for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so there we go, Visco, right here on Digital Trends Live. That's one of the great things we get to do. We get to talk to incredible creators and founders of companies and tech that you use, and discuss it right here and get it straight from their mouths. So we've got a lot more coming up, and we want to thank everybody who's joining us. So whatever platform you're on, thank you for joining us here on Digital Trends Live. And like I said, we have a lot to talk about, and coming up next, we have another great interview for you. So to remind you, we have Cameron Clayton, who's GM of Watson Media and Weather. So we're going to talk about how we're so used to seeing all of our weather reports just right there instantly, knowing what's going on, but that's a really hard thing to do. So we're going to talk about how they curate it at IBM, all that and more coming up. Drop in your comments, questions back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Feel free to share the show wherever you're watching and let other people know about it. It's a lot of fun, it's interactive, and we get to talk to you about tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and sometimes peel the curtain back a little bit and talk about the technology that makes things happen that we utilize every day and so many different industries do. And that's, in part, I think what we're going to be talking about right now. We've got Cameron Clayton, the General Manager for Watson Media and Weather at IBM. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I want to give everybody just an understanding of what that means for Watson Media and Weather and what's involved in that.
Yeah, so it's basically the weather company, which is now owned by IBM. We have 300 million mobile users every day, another 100 million people using us on the web, on weather.com and Weather Underground. And essentially, we're here to predict the future. And help people make better decisions, whether it's what to wear, business planning, or even governments, how they can support their citizens.
And it's something that we all utilize so much on your mobile device. I mean, you just said how many hundreds of millions of people, and we're all utilizing it, and it's easy to forget that hasn't always been there. We didn't always have instant access to this.
That's right. And it's there's also sort of what we call a meteorological divide. So sort of between the North America, Japan, Western Europe have all invested as governments and countries in the science of weather. But in the rest of the world, they haven't. And so there's a big disparity that's existing between, the kind of forecast you can get in Africa versus the kind of forecast you can get and we enjoy here in the United States. And the implications of that are pretty massive on businesses and just on people's lives every day.
Why is that there's such a disparity between the two?
I think it's really come down to governments nationalistically, they're there to support their citizens, and some have invested a lot of money to invest, others haven't. But with the launch of Graph, which is our new global high-resolution weather forecasting model. It's the first global model of its kind in the world, and now sort of it evens out that divide. It makes it an even playing field, and it basically means every person on Earth gets a weather forecast down to a 2-mile gridded radius. So essentially, what that means is, a farmer in Kenya is going to have the same forecast as a farmer in Kansas, and we think that's a really big deal.
I mean, that's huge, and down to 2 miles. I mean, let's walk through this. So IBM Graph was announced just a few days ago, actually. Let's walk through what exactly that is, and then get into some more of those implications.
Sure. So IBM Graph is this high-resolution global atmospheric forecast. And so that's, if you think about it, that's the math and the science that's going on, like billions of computations going on. And what we're trying to do there is model exactly what's happening in the atmosphere at 2 miles everywhere around the world. And as we all inherently understand this, but it's really about democratizing this kind of high quality forecast. But you can't do that without supercomputing, right? So on one hand, you need the science. On the other hand, you need supercomputers to be able to do that. So the other big first with Graph is that we're using an IBM supercomputer that's GPU or graphical processing. Actually is like a gamer's dream. It has a whole bunch of NVIDIA graphics cards in it. And we use that to simulate atmosphere, like I mentioned, every 2 miles around the world.
Wow. How do you curate the data? I mean, I'm sure there's just so many sources. Obviously, you need a supercomputer to handle it all. But what are the general sources? Is it satellite imagery or a combination of historical data? How are you able to predict it? Because that seems like that's always just such a hard thing to do, no matter how much info you have. But if you can get it down within 2 miles.
We designed it to be able to take in all the known sources we have today. So whether it's satellites, it's weather stations, it's weather balloons, it's planes, it's phones, it's cars. We're taking all those sources in today. But Graph was also built to be able to, be ready for sort of future proofed, if you like, to be able to take in all the new sources for tomorrow. So whether it's drones or, autonomous tractors or, you name it, we don't even know what's coming, right? But all those different IoT censored devices can all be inputted in to this Graph weather model to make it even better and even more accurate in the future.
So getting it down to that tight of a radius, to within 2 miles, which is just mind-boggling to even think about. It really is. So with that kind of detailed information, what are some of the ramifications? You mentioned, as we talked about at the beginning, the disparity as far as information for everybody. So now that this farmer in Kenya can know it's within 2 miles, what's that going to do for their lives?
Yeah, so I think the implications are almost so many and so large. I'm not sure we even understand all of them yet, because we're just getting started. But many farmers in Kenya, for example, live on $100 a year, and so if they're planting crops twice a year, the implications financially for them are huge. If this, a sudden, monsoon right after they plant their crops, that crop's going to be completely gone. We're going to lose all of those resources and income. I think that's hard for many of us in the Western world to understand. Probably more tangible for us is flying. So, here at IBM, we've helped the commercial airlines reduce turbulence here in North America by 50% in the last 10 years. With Graph, we're basically going to extend that capability to the whole world. So if you're flying from, say, Paris to, Johannesburg, an hour in advance, the pilot's going to get a notification about potential turbulence and get rerouted, changing altitudes, etc. You could imagine an oil rig, preparing for a thunderstorm on a summer afternoon, an hour in advance of that thunderstorm even being visible. Perfect sunny day, and then the thunderstorm pops up, but they'll get an hour advance warning of those kinds of things.
That's pretty incredible. Yeah, thinking about it beyond that, that personal level that we all have on our phone, just the real implications of what that can mean for so many different industries. Well, from here, and now that it's rolled out, how is it being implemented? What's the schedule on that?
Yeah, so it rolled out on, as you mentioned, last Thursday, the November 14th, to basically all of our consumer audiences for free, or sort of a free upgrade, if you like. And so now we have, 3.5 billion smartphone users around the world will have access at no charge to the graph weather data. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you have a smartphone, you can go to Apple or Google App Store and download our apps and have access to the information. For our enterprise customers, it's rolling out by industry. So travel and transportation is rolling out right now to the aviation industry. Then we're moving on to agriculture and rolling it out to our agriculture customers around the world. There'll be power and utility companies. And so we're going to rolling launch for the enterprise by industry over the next 6 months.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. That we're getting this that much closer. I mean, there's always that old saying, whether the weatherman's right or not, it's always 50-50.
Right.
But this is something that we're getting a lot closer to getting more accurate.
Yeah, and it's really because of the massive improvements in computing, right? Cloud computing has reduced the cost of this computing in a very material way. And then the other big change has been AI, right? Bringing artificial intelligence on top of all these data sources. Those are the two sort of magical things that have, democratized this weather, made it possible for us to develop graph.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live. I mean, it's fascinating seeing this use. I mean, you mentioned AI, yeah, another great use of artificial intelligence and what it can mean for us, but certainly something we're all going to be taking advantage of. So everybody out there, you're on your phone, you're probably using the service already, you just didn't even realize it.
Exactly right.
Well, thank you very much for being here on Digital Trends Live with us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So that is just fascinating to think about, something that we're all using, but just where does all that data come from? Well, it's really hard to do that, and that's certainly an insight to that, and that's what we want to give you here on Digital Trends Live, among many other things. So we have lots to talk about, as usual. So many guests going through the show. I want to remind everybody we are broadcasting live. We're on a number of different platforms. We can take your comments, your questions. If you have those, drop them in. Up next, we're going to be talking about that new Motorola Razr, the Fold, but with the actual foldable screen. I know Corey Gaskin was able to get his hands on it. We're going to talk about his review, what he thought of it. If you have questions about it, drop those in. That's a good time to ask those right now, because we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. We'd like to keep you up to date on everything that is trending in technology. And definitely a lot of people are talking about the latest foldable phone that has entered into the race, and that is the Motorola Razr, combining both the retro aspect of a Razr that we're all familiar with the flip phone and a foldable screen. And our own Corey Gaskin was able to get his hands on that. We've got a full review at Digital Trends, but we have him here now joining us to actually talk about it. So Corey, walk us through this. What is this phone actually like when you get your hands on it?
Well, when you get your hands on it, the first thing that you realize is that it is a Motorola Razr. Kind of a blast from the past that really brings you back, and you know that you almost think for a second, like, wait a second, was this like one of those old Razrs? Because there were so many variants, but this is a brand new type where when you flip that open, you get a beautiful screen inside that looks so modern, and it looks really good from initial impressions. And the best thing about it is that there's no crease on the inside. They did like a lot of work with the hinge to make sure that when the phone folds shut, the screen actually isn't creasing and is kind of forming like a teardrop shape to avoid that crease. So that's the first thing that's going to like strike you with it. Otherwise, it looks so much like the Motorola Razr. It has that distinctive chin at the bottom where it flips down and just makes that latch almost. And it's the same thinness actually as the original Razr too. So it's palmable, small, easy to open, but there are a few little quibbles that I have with some of the design. Really, when it comes down to it, it looks really great, looks really futuristic, and really nostalgic. But the hinge itself doesn't quite have that snap that a flip phone used to have. So. Yeah, but that's hopefully something they'll resolve in the next generation. But it is very sturdy when it's all the way open and it's all the way closed. It's not like it's a floppy, wobbly hinge. It's just that when you're flipping it open, since it is packing a lot in there as a new modern smartphone, it's heavy. The top part is a little heavier, so you have to kind of like push it through the range of motion to get it all the way open. So that's my first little quibble with it. But otherwise, the hinges are pretty well covered. You can see them, but it's like a very seamless kind of experience. And when it's open, it just looks like a smartphone in a Motorola Razr's form factor.
Well, a couple of things I was just
when
going
it
to
comes
say.
to the functionality.
A couple of things with that too. Just talking about that. You mentioned that the snap. I think that's something that we probably all want. But realistically, when you have something as complex as a foldable screen, I'm going to guess that was probably lower on their list of things to worry about. But talking about the actual functionality of it, I had a couple of just quick questions on that. Compared to we've had the Samsung Galaxy Fold, which was out, the Huawei Mate X, and whatever issues that went on with them. This seems to be one that so far has rolled out without a lot of issues, at least not that we know so far. For the screens, there's that smaller screen on the front when you have it folded close. How did you think that was what do you think you can utilize that for, I guess? How did you like it functionally when you were going through it? What did you feel about that side of it?
Well, Motorola was smart to make sure that that screen wasn't just for display. It's a full 2.7-inch touchscreen, so you can do a few things from the outside. You can do quick replies to emails and text messages, or reply through voice. and you can, get quick notifications. Any notification, of course, an alert will come through there. You can also take selfies through there, which is kind of cool and easy to use. And when you're holding it in your hand in that like small folded closed form factor, it's pretty easy to just snap a quick picture. So that works pretty well. The other thing is that you can do video calls on there. So they're trying to build out more and more things that you can do on there, and without having to open your phone. So it's a good experience to start. But most things you'll definitely want to flip that open for.
So,
But yeah, one note that you were saying about what they did to avoid some of the issues that like the Galaxy Fold and others did. The thing is, nobody has it for a long period of time yet. So that'll happen in December, and it'll get its real stress test. And the one thing that Samsung did when they released the Galaxy Fold is that they told us, at least when they re-released it, that it could withstand, I think it was 200,000 open and close cycles. Whereas Motorola was specifically tight-lipped about how many cycles they could handle. They didn't want to disclose it at all. So we just don't have the data there yet.
So going from there, talking about the actual performance of the phone itself, let's walk through some of the internal sides of it and what we're dealing with when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, when you get into the internals, it's a little bit disappointing. As you may or may not know, it's a $1,500 phone, which, you're paying for the form, you're paying for something that's a little bit cutting edge, and for that, you have to pay a bit of a premium. It's stainless steel and glass, so you are getting some premium materials, but yeah, $1,500 isn't unfortunately going to get you one of the highest spec phones when it comes to the internals. You have a Snapdragon 710 processor, which is just like a little step below the 800 series, which is what you'll find in most flagship smartphones. It's supposed to be for kind of value flagship phones. And, it performs well. When I was using it, I couldn't tell, much skipping or issues or hanging. But, when it comes to gaming or something that's more intense like that, you're not going to reach the same level of performance that you're going to get on, even the Galaxy Fold, for instance, which has flagship level internals with that 800 series Snapdragon. There's 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, so that's nice. Storage is not expandable, but the other concession, there's 2 other concessions that you're making for this Motorola form factor, Razr form factor, and first is the camera. You step down from what is now expected to be at least a 2 or 3 camera setup these days for a flagship smartphone to a 116 megapixel camera, which we're just going to have to see how well it performs. It doesn't have a lot of tricks in its bag. There's really nothing new there. So kind of a run-of-the-mill 16 megapixel smartphone camera. So a little disappointing that you have to skip out on being more modern and more versatile. But the other concession is potentially battery life. This is another thing that Motorola was really tight-lipped about in terms of what they expect. They call it all-day battery life, which is tough because that's kind of, when I hear that, I think about what, Apple tells me about the smartwatches, that it's all-day battery life, which is like, you'll make it through a day, you'll be fine, but barely, especially with heavy use. And that was to keep form factor slim, as well as keep that, the Snapdragon 710 kind of necessitated that too. You'd need a bigger battery for a bigger processor. So these are some of the things that you're going to have to step down on if you want that beautiful, iconic, cutting-edge, yet nostalgic phone.
Well, it sounds like a really interesting balance that they went with when it comes to that, as far as going for that nostalgia factor, but not giving all of those highest-end things and still charging a premium high. I mean, $1,500 for a phone is a lot. You'd expect to have all the best of the best, but it's an interesting move. I'll be curious to see how many people actually go out and get it at that $1,500 price. Just last question here, going forward, do you think we're going to see any more innovation on this line, maybe leading up to CES or anything else in the foldable space?
In the foldable space, we're not expecting anything too much before CES. These things like that might change during MWC in February. But yeah, 2020 is definitely going to be the year of the foldable phone. So with this foldable, we're going to expect the release in December, or the pre-order start in December and then release in January. So we'll actually get to see one of the first foldables to fold horizontally rather than vertically rather than horizontally. and make it more pocketable. But we'll just have to see. I hope there's a second generation Razor because I'd love to see one with top tier flagship specs.
Nice. Well, Corey, thank you so much for joining us, as always, to talk about this and keep us up to date on it. You can check out Corey's review at digitaltrends.com or his walkthrough, his hands-on that he got with it there at the event. Really cool information, cool stuff to see. And Corey, as always, thanks for joining us here.
Thank you.
All right, continuing on here with Digital Trends Live, and we are live. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We like to keep you up to date on everything going on in tech, and since we're live, we can take your comments and questions as we go throughout the show. So make sure you drop those in there and let us know what you want to talk about, what you think about it. You know, what do you think about this Motorola Razr phone? Is that something that you're going to go buy? I would want to know about that. So coming up next, though, we have Will Marks, who is the Senior Vice President of Business Development and Digital at Ovation. Ovation is a digital media platform where you can watch all kinds of different programming. We're going to talk about one in particular called Journey and their overall goals with their platform. So a lot to talk about there, a lot to uncover. And we're going to be doing that live. So stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, thanks for joining us. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So hit that subscribe button, whatever platform you're on. That means you can join us for the show. And I'm Greg Nibbler. Joining us now, we're going to talk about some more digital media. We have from Ovation, the Senior Vice President of Business Development and Digital. It's Will Marks. Hello, Will. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing great. I want to give everybody just kind of a base understanding in case they aren't familiar. It's a really great platform. Can you talk about what Ovation is for everybody out there?
Sure. Ovation is America's leading cable arts television channel. We're in about 40 million homes, carried on all the big distributors, so DirecTV, Verizon, Charter, Comcast, and we've been around about 15 years.
And so certainly a long-standing player when it comes to digital media and obviously available in so many different places. The platform itself is really interesting. And I know in particular there's a show that we were going to be talking about, one called Journey. And could you walk us through what Journey is?
Yeah, so about 2.5 years ago, we realized that cultural travel programming was working really well on air. So we launched up a sub-brand out of Ovation called Journey. And Journey is our cultural digital travel app and platform, and it's available on iOS, Android, tvOS, Fire, all the big players. One of our biggest partners is Roku. Another big one is Zumo, and it's just been very successful for us over the last couple of years. We've been very proud of it.
And the programming is really interesting too about how it's curated. Can you walk through what some of the different shows are that are available through Journey?
Yeah. So. When we started Journey, we really wanted to do a couple different things. We wanted to have very diverse programming on both sides of the camera, so in front of the camera and behind the camera. We wanted to cover the type of travel that is not normally seen on TV, so not just you're in some place for 24 hours and it's hit and run, but to real narrative storytelling in an unscripted way. And so some of the shows we have, you're showing some footage from one of the older Anthony Bourdain series that's been really successful for us. So that we run on Ovation and we run on Journey. And then we also have some cool Journey only things we've been doing. We have a great series called Chasing the Sun with a photojournalist named Steve Friedman. The first season was an acquisition. The second and third seasons we did as co-productions. So we're looking to do more of that. We have there's a footage right there. We have a great show called Lee Chan's World Food Tour, where she goes around the world and kind of explores her heritage through the story of food. We have a great show here in the States called Rock the Park, which is all about visiting as many of the national parks as these two best friends can go and do, and it's a lot of fun. And that's kind of it's really the gamut. It's U.S. based stuff, it's international based stuff, and like I said, we're proud of the journey we've been on so far.
Talking about the programming stuff, I myself am a huge fan of travel shows, so I'm a big fan of everything Journey's doing actually in this space. But when it comes to the personal touch that you get with some of that programming, that really is where it matters, and that's what I think makes a big difference. And some of the programs that you have are really curated with that aspect, like you said, traveling somebody's past or doing it as two best friends going to a national park. You can experience it with them. How do you curate that, and how do you find these programs?
So we have a dedicated development staff, and we have a great guy named Jeff McCran who heads it up. And he really, that's what he does, is he goes and he works with every content distributor in town. He looks on the internet, he works with all the agents here in LA. And we really, every time, try to focus, and you pointed out very well, kind of authentic, deep storytelling. And that's sort of the ethos of the product. And the other thing is, again, I mentioned this at the top, we really wanted to have non-traditional stories. So, diversity behind the camera, women-owned production companies, minority-owned production companies, not the type of host you're used to seeing always on air. And those were some of the core tenets we had when we started to curate and launch.
Which is great. Just gives a whole different kind of look to all of those different stories and learning something about it. That's the fun of travel programming to me. Talking about it from watching and with this breadth of experience, 15 years as a company and really understanding the digital market, how have you seen that shift in the last few years, shift from, I guess, viewing habits of the way that people were and where they're going right now?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one, and this is not, any very profound thing,
right,
is that the consumer deeply wants their content on any piece of glass at any time. So I was a Disney guy, I was a Comcast guy, I had worked at Verizon and Intel when Intel started Intel Media, and that's the continuum right there. Is the consumer wants the programming of their choice on their piece of glass of choice, whether it's a 6-inch piece of glass or 11-inch piece of glass or a 55-inch piece of glass. And so we in the programming and distribution community really have to meet that need from the consumer and try to be a little ahead of the curve and anticipate what they want. And so for us, even as a shop like Ovation, which is a linear cable network through and through, we've launched TV Everywhere apps for our programming. We have authenticated viewing for our programming. We have short form. So on the traditional side, we have it, and then clearly on a digital first brand like Journey, that's always been the tip of the spear for us.
And it's got to be, I mean, especially with the rapid advancement of technology and the different ways that people consume content, whatever it is, trying to adapt to that and adopt these new technologies has got to be challenging. Where do you see this going in, say, like the next few years? Is there any particular avenue of viewing that you think people are going to be wanting to consume?
Yeah, I mean, we are bullish here on ad-supported video. We're very bullish on AVOD. All of the products I spoke about, and Journey itself to its core is an AVOD product. I feel like for us to compete in SVOD, you're going to get stepped on by all the giant dinosaurs or giant pterodactyls or elephants, whatever they might be today. The billions of dollars that a Disney or a Time Warner or a someone can put into their SVOD products is just way out of scale for us in terms of marketing and support. But AVOD, we can do, at a good price, we can find good partners, we can do things non-exclusively, window them in our territories or window them for our platforms, and find a path for us that makes sense. So it's a nice balance for us.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it is so important to have that. I think a lot of people forget, a Disney sure, you can spend billions and billions of dollars on that, but I mean, to get this quality programming, you have to have advertising that pays for that stuff. That's just how it works, and so that's an interesting platform to go about it. And how you integrate that is certainly always, I would imagine, constantly evolving.
Yes, it's just even in the last handful of years to see the rise of Roku, these free ad-supported streaming television players like a Pluto, which got acquired, and a Tubi, and those guys. We think they're all interesting partners. We're also very bullish on the OEM partners, so the glass itself. So whether it's a Samsung or an LG or a Vizio, we're bullish on all of those guys because they make it very easy for the consumer to find programming immediately. You buy a television, you take it home, and there's basically a full cable package there. As soon as you plug in your Ethernet or you type in your Wi-Fi password, and that's for young consumers. I just see it, and we just see it as a paradigm shift for them. It's a different way to get your programming in your house without a truck roll and all the other stuff we used to do years ago.
Right, it just streamlines that process so much better. Yeah, to get a hold of what you want to watch. Well, I mean, I know we're out of time, but I want to say thank you very much for joining us to talk about this. It's fascinating. Congratulations on all the success journey. I mean, I'll say it's a great platform, and really excited to watch that. But Ovation in general.
Thank you guys. Go watch it and enjoy. Appreciate the time.
Will do. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Take care.
All right, so really interesting learning about that, right? I mean, we're all consuming content in so many different ways, and just how we get that to ourselves, how we're watching it, and finding out a little bit about behind the scenes on how it's brought to us. Always fascinating discussions. So we've got more coming up, though. Lots of discussions to be had. We've got some more news we're going to bring you up to date on here in a minute. We'll be back right after this break on Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, we're live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So thanks for joining us. Share the show. Let everybody know about it. You can drop in your comments as we go throughout the show because we are interactive. I like to remind everybody of that. We want to know what you think about the conversations we're having. But let's bring you up to date on some more trending news right now. And this is one that is both exciting and I don't know if I would want to do it or not, but I want to know your thoughts on this. It has to do with jet suits. Yes, jet suits are a thing. Now, we've all seen the videos of the flyboard, which is more kind of the Green Goblin style jet suit where he's rolling around on that. But this is something that's different. We're talking about the Ironman suits. This comes from Richard Browning, who's a British inventor in Daredevil. He's often called the real-life Iron Man based on this suit that he's got. And this is something that happened over the weekend where he broke a world record. So he broke the world record for flying in a jet suit, which I wasn't even sure that there was one. But he had the record before. The previous record was flying 32 miles an hour. It was something like this. But this time, he was able to break that by quite a bit. So he ended up going, I believe it's 85 miles per hour. 85 miles per hour, 85.06 is what he was able to fly in this. Now, the sparks coming out of the back, I was wondering if that was intentional or not. I was not able to get the info on that, so that may just be part of it or maybe for show. But as you can see, the way that he's able to just stand there and hover is pretty amazing. He's got the 3 packs on the arm, on each arm for that stabilization, and then the thrust is coming from the back. So the way he's kind of worked this out in order to handle that. Pretty incredible. Now, this isn't something you're going to be able to go out and just buy right now, but it is something that they're actively working on. And the other thing that they talked about is, yeah, they set this record for 85 miles per hour, but they would like to get it up to 200 miles per hour. So they believe, at least Richard Browning believes, that they can actually utilize this technology and get up to that. So they for this one, well, earlier this year, you may have remembered they were actually in the news earlier for a long distance flight. They flew 0.8 miles with it. You can't store a lot of fuel on these things, so the long distance side of it is something that's got to be worked out as they go forward, but they flew 0.8 miles to an island outside of England. We talked about it here on Digital Trends Live. We got coverage at digitaltrends.com. But now with this speed record, they want to be able to go up to more than double that, more than double the 84 miles an hour and go up to 200 miles per hour. The video is pretty impressive. It shows the stabilization is pretty amazing what they're able to do, but pretty cool stuff when it comes to tech. Again, I don't think I would want to get in this, not for a long time, but I'm glad there's people out there that are doing it, so you can check that out at digitaltrends.com. All right, continuing on with our trending news here and talking about different things that are happening. This next one is in Las Vegas. And it's something that, well, a little over a year from now, if you are going to a convention at the Las Vegas Convention Center, which a lot of us probably have at some point or another, you're going to be able to try something out from the Boring Company. Yes, the Boring Company, owned by Elon Musk. And it is a new tunnel they are digging, showcasing their ability and technology to create faster travel, faster commuting. So this one is a sample that they're doing. Well, it's more than a sample. I mean, it really is a full-on tunnel system that they're building, but it's just at the LVCC. So, however, if you've never been there, the LVCC is quite big. It's 200 acres. And what they're going to be able to do is, with that 3.2 million square foot space, is with this tunnel that they're digging underneath, you're going to be able to get from one side to the other in approximately 1 minute. Again, there's kind of a demonstration showcasing where they're going to have these 3 stops for it. So you get off there. If you've ever been there, and again, this is a huge, huge campus, and we go there for the Consumer Electronics Show a lot, but there's all kinds of conventions. It takes a long time to get from one end to the other, especially with all the people involved. This would be able to mitigate that really easily, and they're saying that this is something they can build in just a little over a year. So they just started it. They broke ground on it. There's going to be 2 tunnels. They'll be 40 feet below the surface. And it's because of their boring tools why this is such a big tech story. They've worked on contracts with a number of different cities. There's speculative things that have been happening. They were going to build one underneath the LA freeway. That got nixed by some neighborhood organizations, but this is one that's actually going through. And if this is successful, their plans are to possibly build this down the Strip in Las Vegas, out to the airport. They've got talks with Chicago about doing this because if you can put this underground, you can cut out so much traffic and travel time, and they can go very, very fast. So they said that this thing could go up to, depending on how it ends up being, up to 150 miles an hour as going through there. We're not quite to a Hyperloop, but this could be the start of something like a Hyperloop once you get into this kind of technology. So pretty cool. And they said by CES, Consumer Electronics Show, which is in January of 2021, that this will be ready to go for people going there to try this out. And I can assure you that Digital Trends will be there to try that out when that does launch. It won't be there this year, but a little over a year from now. They're saying they can complete it that fast. If they can, pretty big example case for them to put to other cities to see where it goes. You can check that out at digitaltrends.com. All right, one more trending story to talk about when it comes to space technology. Certainly we discuss that a lot, whether it's commercial use, NASA's use. We're really in a boon for space exploration and technology involved in it. And we often hear about all of the U.S. plans, maybe the European plans to go to Mars, to put somebody on Mars. Don't forget about the Chinese. The Chinese have some really ambitious plans. Their Chinese Space Agency to go to the moon is one of the huge things that they want to do. They're going to put people on the moon. But they also want to get to Mars with their rovers. And they did a test of their rover over this last weekend, and it's kind of showcased some of the really cool abilities that they have. One of the main things, there it is, when they dropped it from this huge tower to kind of simulate what it would be like landing on the surface. One of the big things that you have to worry about is a soft landing. I mean, you're falling down from space. It's very easy to crash and destroy these things, and there's plenty of examples of that. So they showcased how they believe that their lander is going to be able to land safely on Mars, and it's pretty amazing. Actually, it worked very well. So this is one of the first things in a number of things that they're planning on doing. So this right there, you're showcasing, it's got some of the thrust that comes out from the bottom. It's got to avoid obstacles. It's got to land safely, whether it's maybe adjust itself, if it's going to land on a rock. So there's a lot of technological sides that come into that, but they think they're going to be able to get that up there very soon, heading to Mars. So to launch their probe onto the surface, their lander, in competition, maybe in cooperation, but let's be honest, there's some competition going on there with the US and the ESA and maybe the Japanese Space Agency. But that's where we're at right now, taking a look at that. So definitely really fascinating stuff. We're going to talk about more with Mars coming up in a bit. We'll have Georgina Torbett on, so don't forget to stick around for that segment. But before we do that, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about different ways that we are able to stay healthy. We're talking to stay healthy. So different applications that can help us when it comes to health technology, really great use cases of that. We've got two of the founders on that are going to be joining us here after this break. So stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
This is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us. We're interactive. We can take your comments, your questions, whatever you want to bring up as we go throughout the show, so drop those into the chat. And I'm Greg Nibbler, and we certainly love to talk about different ways that technology can help our lives out, particularly when it comes to health. We see some amazing advancements in that. We're going to talk about some of those right now. We have from the founder and CEO of Stay Healthy, John Collins, and the president, Ziggy Cormandel, who are both joining us right now. John and Ziggy, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, seems like he's been in fight quite a bit.
All right, we are live right now. This is part of being live. Hey, John and Ziggy, can you hear me right now?
Yes. You can, yes.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to talk about this, and we like to talk about the different ways that technology is being utilized to help people out. But let's talk about the founding of Stay Healthy. And John, maybe you can start us off. Walk us through what was some of the inspiration that you wanted to form this for.
Stay Healthy was founded in 1995 in Iowa by a couple of professors out of Iowa State University. And the purpose was to utilize the then emerging internet so that we could provide access to high quality medical grade clinical devices and equipment and screening tools at no cost. The first kiosk that they created was a desktop version. And then in 1998, I took the company over, and we focused on what we saw as the biggest emerging problem at that time, which was excess body fat, and that situation's only got worse.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the statistics side of that, as far as maybe giving people an overview of how that's gotten worse. What are the trends right now? What's kind of a good big picture view of that?
Yeah, let's talk about 1998. So at that time, the excess body fat percent, so the population of the US at large, was 60%. Today, that is 70%. And if you read the latest research, you will see that it is predicted that in the next 20 to 30 years, it could get close to 100%. The latest study that just came out about children on a worldwide basis said that in the next 10 years, the number of children worldwide who are obese, not just excess fat, will exceed 250 million. So the trends are extremely bad and very, very poor.
And so let's talk about Stay Healthy and some of the ways that what the app does, I guess. Walk people through the process of if they're using this app. What are the things that it does?
Ziggy.
Yeah, so we have a few apps, but I believe we're talking about Color Quest.
Yes.
So what we've done is we've created a mobile app that helps engage and educate children about their bodies and about healthier eating choices, because they're not teaching that in school anymore. And we landed, when we did our research in the app stores, we landed on two activities that are wildly popular amongst children and adults, and that was coloring and puzzles. So we led with coloring. You'll notice sometimes if you come to a restaurant, many times they'll offer a child something to color, some crayons, and it's because it keeps them focused, it keeps them calm. So we've used that, and what we do is we create Color Quest, which is a bunch of cartoon characters that we've developed that are of hearts, different organs, body parts, as well as fruits and vegetables. And they get to color that in using tools on their app, different brushes and colors, and then they bring it to life via augmented reality in the environment, and that character shows up the way they colored it. But before they can engage with that character, they get served up a health tip about that fruit, vegetable, or organ. So they're learning as they're being entertained.
I think that combination of gaming is definitely something that's huge, for kids to learn. We've seen that from a number of different ways. It's a really great way to interact. And with this technology constantly advancing, I would imagine it's a constant, not a struggle, but definitely a constant learning curve on figuring out how to incorporate that in. You mentioned augmented reality, and that is certainly something we're seeing a lot of advancement in. So with AR and within your app, how do you use it? You mentioned that you get to see it in life, but how do they engage with it? What are some of the different aspects of that?
Right, so they're able to, once the character is in their environment, they're able to zoom in, walk around that character. They can shoot a video or a photo to share with their family or grandma or what have you, and they can go ahead and share that as well on social media. Again, at the core of it, what we saw is there's hundreds of millions of downloads for other coloring apps, but the children are literally coloring, sports cars and, flowers and butterflies. They're not the parents that, since they're doing this important activity anyways, why not color things that they can learn about and educate, again, about their own bodies and food, because it is not being taught today. So we want the children, when we hand them a pizza, it would be great for the child to maybe say, hey, Mom, why don't we try some broccoli, right? Or what have you.
I think the important thing here, which we have to keep in mind, is the result. We released Color Quest AR on the YouTube channel almost 2 months ago. And since then, we've had 20 million plus views across all our channels. We were then approached by Universal, the Universal Music Group, and asked us if we could take the same characters and the same subject so that we could prompt not just education about the organs and about the healthy foods, but also activity. What can we do that handles what is such a big problem today, which is children who are inactive? And Ziggy and the team at Stay Healthy came up with the Stay Healthy Shake that was released as a single some 6 weeks ago by Universal, and we have a new single coming out, which we can announce in a couple of weeks on Black Friday, which actually again prompts activity. And the Stay Healthy Shake is a dance using the same characters and telling children, hey, have fun, do this dance, do these activities. And that's already up to close to 600,000 views. It's trending number one in 24 countries around the world. So the way we look at it is, obviously as a company, you take a chance and you create something, you believe in what you said yourself. Quite often people find out that what they thought would work did not. In our case, it has. And we're very excited that we're able to help children through coloring and through activity in a way that they're engaging and in a way that's, 20 million people plus have already seen it. So it's nice to receive that confirmation.
Which means that the content that you're putting out there is certainly something that, if 20 million, I mean, that's huge. It means that kids are wanting to engage in that. And looking at this going forward, you mentioned what a huge issue this is. And I want to go back, you mentioned results and talking about that's the key thing here. how much of an effect have you seen so far, other than the downloads? Obviously, that's tremendous. Where are you at right now as far as that? And then where do you think that you can get in the next couple of years utilizing this tech?
Our company has been around now for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
We have never received market response like we're receiving right now, plus partners who are coming on board, such as Daniel Baldwin from the Baldwin acting family. When he saw this, he said, I'm getting behind this with the rest of our family. Herb Dean, who is the #1 referee in Ultimate Fighting, he just signed an agreement with us. So what we're seeing is an awful lot of people are buying into the issue and saying, yes, we want to help. We want to help the kids. We understand there's a problem. Something needs to be done. So the more we can spread the word and the more we can have people use it and the more we can get celebrity and sponsor support, the better off we are. And that is happening in a big way.
Well, talking about that, of spreading the word and letting people know how they can use it, where can they go get it? What is the best way to get involved with both this app and the other suite of products that you have?
So the best place to go is go to either the Google Play Store or the App Store. You can download Color Quest AR, also colorquestar.com, and then stayhealthy.com. You can learn about a lot of the other applications that we're developing right now as well.
Well, John and Ziggy, I want to say thank you so much for joining us, too. I mean, congratulations on the success that you've had so far. That's tremendous after all that time, too. And now you're seeing this huge response to AR. Clearly, it's resonating with people, and you're on the right track. And obviously, we all want to change those trends in where we're at with obesity. And really, thank you for joining us here on Digital Trends Live to talk about your application and everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You take care.
You, too.
Nice.
So really great learning about that and what people are doing to help combat issues. And health technology is tremendous. It's something that we've seen a lot of growth in. And when you get to see results like that, that's a really great thing as well. So we've got more coming up. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Mars, actually, and some surprising results about oxygen being found on Mars in different levels. What does it mean? Is there life? Are there Martians? Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Coming up, we have Georgina who's going to join us, so stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Apollo 11, your go for separation.
TV is making history again. The groundbreaking Samsung QLED 8K.
This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler, and we love keeping you up to date on stories that are going on in technology. And we talk a lot about space travel, a lot about news coming out about different exploratory programs, and we have some news today that we're going to discuss. To do so, of course, as always, we have Georgina Torbadan. Hello, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to talk to you. And this study, this information that was revealed, was about the Curiosity rover and some things that it found. I want you to kind of walk through what this discovery was, and we'll talk about what this could possibly mean.
Sure. So the Curiosity rover is currently exploring an area of Mars called the Gale Crater. And one of the tools it has on board is a suite called the Sample Analysis at Mars, or SAM tool, which it can the atmosphere. And so it's been taking readings from the Martian atmosphere, and it's found in some ways what we expected, which is that the atmosphere has a mostly made up of carbon dioxide. And in addition, there are small amounts of other gases like nitrogen and argon and oxygen. So far, so normal. But what's the new findings that are really unusual is that the levels of oxygen in the atmosphere seem to vary in a very strange manner. If we have a look at this graph here, you can see those yellow highlighted areas are places where the oxygen levels are up to 30% higher than we would have expected based on seasonal variation. So the levels of nitrogen and argon vary predictably, whereas the oxygen is just all over the place. And one of the reasons this is so interesting is that we just don't know why that is at the moment.
Yeah, that's something, I mean, when you think about Mars, obviously there's different kinds of chemical reactions that can happen, but I mean, to have a spike like that on what's basically a dead planet, that would certainly cause some concern. So, I mean, I can think about what some of the ramifications are, but walk us through what some of the possibilities are that could be causing this spike.
Sure. So the presence of oxygen, it can indeed be associated with microbial life. So one of the more fringe theories is that there's some kind of microbes somewhere beneath the surface producing oxygen, but that's not very likely. The more likely options would be, firstly, that there's something happening in the atmosphere that we don't understand, that there's some kind of chemical process happening in the atmosphere. Although the scientists think that's probably not the case here, because if it was in the atmosphere, you would expect a regular seasonal variation, and that's not what we see. So the other possibility is that there's some kind of what's called a chemical sink somewhere. So there's something on Mars which is absorbing and or producing oxygen. And the most likely explanation for that is that it'll be something geological. So it could be something in the soil or maybe something in the rocks that are beneath the surface that are producing oxygen. And that's why we're finding these strange readings.
What kinds of things, I mean, could that be? Or is that really what the mystery is? What kind of geological activity could be happening?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason it's very hard to tell is that the SAM instrument on Curiosity, it can tell you what the atmosphere is made of, but it can't tell you the sources of those gases. So we know that there are certain geological processes which would result in higher levels of oxygen, but we can't say, given the tools we have at the moment, which one is happening here. Although one interesting finding is that last year there was similar findings regarding the levels of methane on the planet. In that case, the Curiosity rover found that levels of methane were rising by up to 60% at certain times. They just seem to spike, and we don't know why that is either. But interestingly, there does seem to be a correlation between the oxygen levels and the methane levels for at least part of the year. So these two factors are both mysteries at the moment, but they seem to be related somehow to the same thing. So hopefully with some more data, we'll be able to build up and answer not only the oxygen question, but also the methane question as well.
Is there enough data that we can gather with the rovers that are on there right now, or is this something that's going to have to happen with the next batch?
Well, like I say, Curiosity can gather data about the atmospheric conditions as they exist. What it can't do is look for the information about the source. But there are, I mean, there's another mission on Mars called InSight, which is a lander. And that's focused more on, it's specifically looking for Mars quakes, but part of that involves drilling down through the surface of Mars. So there's a possibility that drilling might turn up new information, which could help explain something about these geological processes that are happening.
Well, it's really fascinating, and I love these mysteries that we're finding out. It's like, why is this happening, but how can we do it? And that also, I think, showcases some of the tremendous advancements that we've had, that we're able to analyze it where we are right now. But just what's coming up on the horizon is so exciting when it comes to Mars.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's going to be a lot more great information coming out in the next few years.
Well, as always, thank you for joining us, and check out all of Georgina's articles at Digital Trends. It's really, really interesting, and we go in depth on a bunch of this. And thank you, as always, for being here on Digital Trends Live.
My pleasure. Thanks for talking with me, Greg.
All right, so learning about Mars, always so much fun. So I highly suggest that. We have so many great articles at the website and articles on everything that we've covered here today on digital trends. And that's what we like to do, is keep you up to date on tech. And we've covered a wide gamut of that today, all kinds of different technology that we talked about. And we do that live here every single weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And I want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button so you get the notifications when we do go live. And talking about going live, I also want to let you know about some things we're going to be talking about tomorrow. So Google Stadia is going to be launching. We'll have Matt Smith, our senior editor, on to discuss that launch. He's been using a demo version, and he'll share his opinions, which I'm sure there's going to be a lot of those. And from winky faces to fire, Philip Sargent of Open University will join the program to explore where emojis are now playing a part in our communications, from electoral politics, the culture wars, campaigns against online abuse. So lots to talk about there. And LiDAR technology, mainly known for its use in autonomous vehicles. We'll have Louis Eldada, the CEO of Quanergy, a leading provider of LiDAR technology. We'll be on to discuss the growing use cases for LiDAR beyond autonomous vehicles. And all that and more. We'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of technology. So make sure you join us here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and we will keep you up to date with all of that. For Digital Trends, I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for watching. For continued tech news coverage, go to digitaltrends.com.